And because the Raw falls before this event to form the grid as it did this year, then it's almost a kind of all the teams assemble for pretty much the whole of January, maybe a week off after New Year, but then start to set up for the Raw before the 24, and then the various test sessions, practice sessions before you get to the main race as well. So you have the month of May for Indianapolis and the 500 there, the month of January focused on the Rolex 24. Slightly concerned about some smoke coming out the back of a McLaren there. I think it was just tyre smoke escaping from the rear valance of that car, maybe from the front tyres, and the way that the ground effect works on these GT cars, it channels that smoke, the tyre smoke, all the way down underneath of the car, and it escapes out the back. But if that's something more concerning, i.e. from the engine, don't want to see that. We'll keep an eye on it. But the 70 car that leads the GT Daytona standard class, which is the Inception Racing McLaren, really going well at this stage. Frederick Schandorf, who is the silver-rated Dane, partnering up with Brendan Reeve, who's the bronze, Ollie Milroy, who had a stint, or a good few stints earlier on, and Jordan Pepper, who's enjoyed some time at the lead of that class as well, behind the wheel of the British sports car. Only 0.6 of a second, though, Schandorf's advantage over Richard Lietz, driving the 16 Wright Motorsports car for the Austrian.
One of the things I just always enjoy is just I'm about to say something. Andrew's been so super productive. He's got another interview. Andrew, who's your latest?
Yeah, I got Matt Campbell, and Matt very kindly come down off the perch where he was wrapped in a big blue blanket, trying to keep warm, Matt.
Yeah, it's still quite cold in the morning. It's still very difficult on the outlaps and trying to stay on track, but nevertheless we're running at the front and everything's going quite okay towards the end of the race.
Yeah, it's a huge battle. I've just been down with the Ferrari. They seem quite confident. I'm sure you're pretty confident as well. And the Porsche, hopefully, is bulletproof.
Yeah, I think so. It's proved as well this race. We have a clean car. Balance is good, and you know, obviously we're in the mix towards the end of the race. Still need a couple more hours to tick over before we really get stuck in, but nevertheless, it's looking okay, and we're running at the front.
You've done a lot of WEC races in Porsches, of course. How do you compare it with racing at Daytona and in this championship? Because you've got to remember the rules are quite different on certain aspects.
Yeah, quite different. I mean, obviously IMSA is so unique, and also Daytona as well. You know, we don't have anything like this anywhere else in the world, and it's so cool to come here every year and compete in the 24. And you know, obviously this year it's a new challenge as well with the new category in GTD Pro, so that's really exciting, and really happy to be in the US for the first time for a full season with Metro.
Absolutely. Have you ever driven a Aussie supercar?
Yeah, done a few endurance races before, did it last year and a few years before that as well, and I love to get back and try and do it every year, but obviously my duties with Porsche come first. This is what I want to be doing, but nevertheless it's always good to go back home and have some fun in the supercars.
Always good to go to Bathurst as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's my favourite track in the world, and any excuse to go back home is a good one.
I think it's going to be a battle of the finish. Really appreciate you coming off and unwrapping yourself from that blanket.
Thank you.
He was a winner of the Bathurst 12-hour in 2018, 19, one of the two, with a spectacular overtake in the closing stages. He was put in for the final stint, understandably, and threw the thing around like a Porsche Carrera Cup car rather than
2019.
GT. 19, thank you, Bruce. I knew you'd have that at your fingertips.
On my pieces of paper, I have many pieces of paper.
The other interesting driver in that number 9 FAF Motorsport car, though, is Felipe Nasser, who I don't think has ever driven a GT car prior to this weekend. And this is the nature of changing the GT Daytona landscape, bringing in the pro bit of it, and there are fewer DPI cars, but of course Nasser previously a real regular in DPI, speaking of which, stonking battle down towards turn 1 between an Acura and a Cadillac. Oh, and a bit of a lock-up there from Alexander Rossi in the Wayne Taylor Racing Konica Minolta Acura, which allows Pipo Derani through and into second place. He's got a Corvette to deal with from the GT Daytona Pro class. Lights appearing to flash on the rear, but I think they are static, being LED lights for the rear of the Whelen Racing car. But from a long way back, seemingly, this car's had a habit of doing this. He did a spectacular move in the night when Kevin Magnussen No, in the other Cadillac, Kevin Magnussen came from a long way back in the 0-2. This time, it is the 31 of Pipo Derani who forced the mistake from Alexander Rossi. He needed to tuck to the inside line and just asked a bit too much of the tyres. They weren't having it.
I think that's the thing. You know, in the night we acknowledged it was really, really cold, but now it's, you look at the images, sunshine, glorious sunrise, you think there must be heat. There isn't a whole lot of heat, and just to see cars understeering like that into turn one, clearly just braked a tiny bit too late for the tyres as they are. Would be perfectly good if it was another 5 degrees warmer, but ceding that second position, Alexander Rossi will have to fight back again for the number 10 entry run by Wayne Taylor Racing, sponsored by Konica Minolta. But again, just such a fantastic battle down into turn one. But really, it was a very, very brave dive by Derani. He committed himself to the inside line, and luckily, suddenly, instead of being just a car's width wide, with Rossi going wide, it became 2 car widths wide. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But the Acura not dropping away hugely, and again it's onto the straight line segments that the ARX-05 seems to favour. The Cadillac, maybe with its heavier mid-mounted engine, just is better in the slower speed corners where you need good traction, good drive. And again, the 31 car is just scampering away, coming out of the Western Horseshoe. And at the moment, Alexander Rossi just cannot find a response to that. And I think it's a similar situation for Simon Pagenaud, different team, but same chassis for Meyer Shank Racing with Curb Agajanian. And the Acura DPI, yes, it's terrific through the air, through the speedway corners, at high speed and in the higher gears, but can't match the big caddies on the flatter sections on the infield. And through they will go into the first corner. Slight grimace there for Alexander Rossi as he watches the Cadillac become a smaller and smaller speck on the horizon. Pipo Derani into a clear second place, and the question is now, can he be consistent enough to reel in Richard Westbrook 6 seconds away? But on the previous lap, he managed to find 0.6 of a second.
Yeah. Obviously, traffic will be an issue, but what I always find intriguing is when you get a shot looking across, a sort of cockpit shot at the face of the driver, you know, they're thinking ahead, they're thinking what's up ahead, but you're in a battle for second position in the Daytona 24 Hours. You've got a fabulous scrap with Pipo Derani, you're looking at the face of Alexander Rossi, whatever, but he's looking up ahead, he must be thinking, oh no, 5 GT cars fighting for position. Will one of us get through, 2 of us, or neither of us? And where can I possibly use the traffic to my advantage? But it's always been a feature of the Daytona 24 Hours. And the track, that infield section, it's nip and it's tuck, and at the moment, no front-end grip for any of them. It's really, really difficult. But I guess the image of Daytona in 24 Hours is the cars up on the banking. And of course, you tend to see the prototypes going high, the GTs staying low. But it's not a given, because we've seen lots of drivers threading the eye of the needle, and every time it makes you draw your breath in. But I'd say, actually, they've all performed really admirably. I think the driving has been very good indeed. Under cover of darkness, there was some side-by-side clashes, and certainly Heart of Racing team, really unfortunate for them to lose the number 23 in the cover of darkness. Their Aston Martin out of the GTD Pro class, and but there will always be casualties, unfortunately, in motor racing, and theirs was one of them in the night.
They were not the first and will not be the last. Phil Hansen from the LMP2 field heading down pit lane to be one of the first of the secondary prototype class to pit. So therefore, expecting Louis Delatraz in, it's still in about 11 laps time, actually. So Phil has found his way off that more common pit lane switch around. So Patricio Award, Mikkel Jensen, Louis Delatraz, their stops only separated by 2 laps, really, whereas Phil Hansen nears the end, or has just got to the end of a 20-lap stint, which is decent going in LMP2. Patricio Award has done a 21-lap stint not too long ago. Mikkel Jensen likewise as well. It depends whether you can get a bit of fuel save here and there, maybe lift and coast when you know you're about to hit a wall of traffic. But it's a short lap round here, 3.5 miles, 90 seconds at the wheel of a DPI car. But even so, even though it's such a short lap, it still takes quite a lot to eke out the fuel performance to gain a full lap on a stint. Half a lap, 9/10 of a lap is no good.
The pressure is finally off Matteo Jaminet because that pesky Ferrari, the Rizzi Competizione Ferrari, car number 62, is in the pit lane. And Alessandro Pierguidi that was troubling Matteo Jaminet for second position in class. Don't forget that wasn't the lead because that's another Porsche leading GTD Pro, and it's the number 2 car from KCMG in its long-standing blue and white race livery, which they've draped over an awful lot of cars over the years, and single-seaters as well for the team based in Hong Kong. But KCMG leading the way. Patrick Pilet 15 seconds to good over Matteo Jaminet, who has now got a decent margin over the car that's been elevated to third in class. It's the Vassar Sullivan Racing Lexus car number 14 with Carl Kirkwood, very much one of the coming men on the American racing scene. And meanwhile, that 62 Ferrari out of the pits again, Pierguidi staying on board. And of course, as the pit sequence unravels, he may be back in that lead group all over again.
Down towards turn 1 will go Richard Westbrook for once for Westy. A relatively clear road ahead, and he will peer around the Western Horseshoe to now see a lot of cars, so has to play this one cannily. So we can go back to the pit lane because we've got a couple of Porsches in the GT Daytona Pro mixture, one of which is the KCMG example, earlier driven by Dennis Olsen, who's now with Andrew Marriott.
I'm sorry, that's a negative. I was halfway up the ladder. I was halfway up the ladder to the perch where Dennis Olsen was sitting with a helmet, but the team thought I wasn't appropriate to interview him, so I've been shuffled out of the garage, mate.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and then Dennis is a super guy, you know, and but there's some PR person between us and him, and you know, we first saw him racing in Creventic, didn't we? We seen him 4 or 5 years ago. But young Norwegian driver, maybe I'll get him a bit later.
Yeah, well, there's time yet, and as you say, if he knows it's you coming calling, he will be very eager to spend a couple of minutes of his time. I wonder whether that is because the fact that you've been shuffled away, that he's due to take the car over fairly shortly, although Pilet, I thought, was still installed for a little while. What do you reckon then? Is Dennis due to go in the car imminently, Andrew?
Yeah, they told me he's going in the car in 10 minutes.
Okay, so 24 laps done for Patrick Pilet. 10 minutes will give us another 5 laps. That's about smack on, actually. 29 laps in. Sometimes the GT cars can get to 30, but no further. As in from second position in the LMP2 class is Kai van Berlo. In fact, he was leading.
He was leading, and Nick Johnson staying out in 54 managed to take the P3 class lead. But it's been a really good run from Kai van Berlo. He and his brother Glenn van Berlo, you know, doing an increasing amount of prototype racing. Again, more young Dutch racers embracing cars. But I must say, the 74 car presented by Riley Motorsport does look absolutely fantastic. I really, the livery at the moment, that's a bright orangey red. With the blue looks crisp. The Inception Racing McLaren is in the pit lane at the moment. Clean screen being cleaned, and that's the car shared by Brendan Reeve, Frederick Schandorf, who probably brought it in. Yes, he did. Ollie Milroy and Jordan Pepper, and it's the car that McLaren is pinning all its hopes on because the other McLaren, the Crucial Motorsports one, had its problems early on.
Away it goes, sounding glorious in the process. And now the all-important duty is to desperately try and get some tyre temperature and pressure up, even in the pit lane, because that might make the difference. With the Batmobile-style steering wheel attached to the column, so no top and lower piece to it. It is just where your hands go. That's the modern-day, has been for a few years now, type steering wheel. Endless amount of buttons on the front and quite probably back as well. So you need to know where all of those crucial telemetry instructions are to the car's ECU, and also to message back to the crew on the pit perch if you want any advice about what to do next, or indeed want to acknowledge a message that suggests you might have to come in the next few laps for some fuel. But we know the McLaren will be fine for 30-odd laps or so. And new driver in, well, still shown as Frederick Schandorf, but there was a driver change there, was there not? Perhaps not, actually.
No, I don't think there was.
Okay.
I'm fairly sure I saw the red and white stripe at the bottom of his helmet. He's a Dane, it's a Danish flag. So I think Frederick Schandorf is correctly still in the car.
Okay. 12 seconds away from Richard Lietz, who now leads the class for Wright Motorsports, and their teal turquoise Porsche number 16. Simon Mann, who we're hearing from not too long ago, with Andrew Marriott running in 3rd position now in the 21 car for AF Corsa. And in 4th place in GT Daytona, it's the 44 Aston for Johnny Adam, sharing with Spencer Pompelli, Andy Laddie, who spent a long time overnight in the class lead, and joined by bronze-rated John Potter at Magnus Racing.
Just looking to see that lead group. We've got the top 4 cars in the race. Richard Westbrook, Pipo Derani, Alexander Rossi, Simon Pagenaud, respectively, in the number 5 JDC Miller Motorsports Cadillac. That's Westbrook's car. He's only 3.8 seconds clear, but the pointers under 15 seconds cover all 4 of them. And in terms of race pace at the moment, it's Alexander Rossi who's setting the pace. He's 3rd. He started to close in on Derani, who, guess what, is closing in on Richard Westbrook. This is fantastic.
Whilst we enjoy this out on the track, let's get to Riley Motorsports. Andrew Marriott has found the Ligier run by the 74 crew.
Yeah, I just thought I'd leg it down. I thought I'd leg it down here and check about that driver change. I can confirm the drivers from Holland, Van Berlo, K. Van Berlo, stayed in the car. So everybody seems calm down here at the 74 Ranch Resort. I don't know what 74 Ranch Resort is. It's presumably some lovely place where you go and ride horses.
Sounds very picturesque,
just
doesn't
got
it?
another MP3 car in. So I'm going to pop up to the 38. This is the Performance Tech car. This is a car which has got the big pole they have with the lights and the fuel on them. On the top of that is a big flamingo. Garrett Chris just got out of the car. I'm going to grab Garrett in a minute, Canadian driver who raced in Indy Lights in the past, but we've seen him racing in the Asian Le Mans series with United as well. He's got a lot of experience now.
Yeah, also a mixture of teams in the European Le Mans series, does a fair bit in the Michelin Le Mans Cup that supports that category as well. It's a busy boy, is Garrett Grist. From Grimsby, I seem to remember, but not the Grimsby in the northeast of England. Grimsby, Canada, and spends quite a bit of his time in Europe now because of the deals that he's got rumbling. Exciting plans, I'm sure, for the rest of 2022 as well. The number 5 car for Richard Westbrook now leading, but only by 1.7 seconds. So that gap is coming down, and now being monstered by a recovering Chip Ganassi racing car. So Marcus Ericsson, quite possibly, or is it the 01 of Renger van der Zande again? The problem is that these Chip Ganassi cars were always going to be quick, even though they've encountered problems along the way. So let's get back to Andrew Marriott, who's managed now to find Garrett Grist.
Yeah, Garrett's down here. Garrett's been a while since I saw you. I think over in Malaysia or somewhere, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was the last round of Asian Le Mans at Sepang, right? Yeah.
You've made some great progress in LMP racing since then, though.
Yeah. I mean, this is obviously going to be my first year back in the US. I've done the last 4 years in ELMS, Le Mans Cup, Asia Le Mans. Yeah, no, it's a great class. I've been loving it.
Are you going to do this whole championship with Performance Tech?
So I'm signed to do the whole championship with Junior 3.
All right.
But this isn't a points race, and we got our new car a month or 2 ago, so it was just too rushed to do it. So I'll be at Junior 3 full time, and I'm just here for a one-off with these guys.
How's the track conditions now? There must be a lot of rubber down.
Yeah, quite a bit of rubber. I mean, with IMSA, you have so many yellows, and there's such long yellows that usually a lot of stuff gets blown off, which is nice. It's not like, Le Mans, for instance, where they don't really do that. So, yeah, definitely, it's not great, but not bad.
So, what are you going to miss about Europe?
The food?
Yeah, I thought you'd say that, yeah.
No, I mean, ELMS is one of the best race series in the world, as you see by the car count. But, no, definitely the competition's so high in P3, the team level's so high in P3. But yeah, no, I love going to Europe, the cities, the food, the atmosphere, the level of racing so high. But no, I'm happy to be back in the States and look forward to being here for, multiple years.
Great work. Super guy Garrett Grist, thank you very much.
Still only 26, so you would have thought a long career ahead of him if he should choose that path in prototype racing. Maybe some GT racing as well that he's done less of, but there's always the scope. Felipe Nasser taking part in his first ever GT race, by my reckoning, this weekend, providing a further option. 79 car rejoining the race with some erratic steering necessary to get tyre temperature and pressure up in the fronts for Alessio Picariello.
Well, he's a long way down, but
yeah.
Johnny, cast your mind back not so long ago. We had him spinning off the circuit and very nearly collecting, in fact, the KCMG Porsche that's leading the GTD Pro class. I can't remember who was at the wheel at the time, but it was going into turn number 4 and suddenly backwards across the grass. Unfortunately, there was an access road there, so the tarmac actually slowed him down a little bit, but it was freezing cold tarmac, so not very much. Then a bit of grass, then across the track, then just stopped by the wall. But for that car, the fastest, the best placed cars in GTD Pro have got how many laps under the wheels? 582. And Picariello's car 540 to do the maths, 40 laps in arrears. So just plugging around, it's going to take a long time to get above 40th position. But again, we talked about this a short while ago, Johnny, having this, the big one, the Daytona 24 Hours at the start of the championship, it can put you on the back foot a little bit if you take a tumble in this one. They haven't had a big tumble, but 40 laps is a lot of time lost for that number 79 Porsche.
It's over a stint, and it's a stint and a third. In fact, Picariello's just done 29 laps behind the wheel of that said Porsche, the 79 WeatherTech entry, and installed for another same amount, by which point I'm sure he'll be due for a driver change. The head of the order, Richard Westbrook's gap to Pipo Derani is absolutely nothing now. 0.3 of a second as Pipo has been getting closer and closer to the British driver. 3.2 seconds away from the two leading Cadillacs is Alexander Rossi in the best of the Acuras. So it's two Caddies, two ARX 05s, and really you could stick a pin in any one of those to say that they will be the winner. Yes, the Cadillacs looking stronger towards the end of their stints. We're only 5 laps away, I reckon, from Richard Westbrook requiring some more fuel. Pipo is due in a lap before that, though. So ideally for Derani, he'll want to be ahead on the road of the 05 car to maximise that small chance of opening up a gap. He spent much of this stint closing in on Westbrook, but if he can get past him and then build a lead of 2 or 3 seconds before coming in, that could be very, very valuable once you wind the clock forward by 4 and a bit hours. Nose to tail, coming out of the Western Horseshoe, no way through underneath Westbrook. Having said that, Westbrook just misjudged his braking point very slightly, and Pipo Derani's not going to be asked twice there. Slices up the inside out of turn 6, opportunist move, but the one man you would choose in the whole of the entry to take it is Pipo Derani.
Well, you know what, that 31 Cadillac entered by Action Express Racing, it just seems to have really, really good grip and grunt when it needs to get out of corners, and it was absolutely all choice for the Brazilian racer Derani as to where he put the car. And Westbrook sort of, running perfectly good lines through turn 6 and 7, just couldn't get the car to turn in where he wanted. And the advantage gained, not just track position, but stretching away, just pointing out again how good the traction was for the number 31 Cadillac as they go towards the Le Mans chicane. Around the banking beforehand, the advantage is about half a second, opened it out very nicely. And I want to just check, did Alexander Rossi gain a little bit in third place? I sense he probably did, so just got to look to see where the blue Acura is. That's the number 10 from Wayne Taylor Racing.
By my reckoning, just heading out of turn 1 now, and Richard Westbrook, having been overtaken by Pipo Derani, now has the pressure of, again, struggling to tell the difference between those two Chip Ganassi Racing Cadillac entries. It's either 01 or 02, so Renger van der Zande or Marcus Ericsson looking to get the place. It is Ericsson. He'll go around the outside of Richard Westbrook, so scored as 6th place of the 7 DPIs. So that does indeed mean it's Marcus Ericsson with pretty much all of the LMP2 field still ahead of him on the timing screen. He is 14th overall. Does Westy just allow that 02 car through, because it might be a touch faster in this phase of the race? Just over 240 minutes still to elapse And we are, 25 to 10 in the morning at Daytona for the 60th running of the Rolex 24 live on IMSA Radio, RS2, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. In the Haggerty commentary box, it is Bruce Jones and Johnny Palmer, and pounding the pit lane, Andrew Marriott. Out of Speedway turn 4 comes Pipo Derani, still good for another 3 or 4 laps. And this is what I was suggesting would be a great scenario for Pipo to have got the lead and now to be building this advantage as the car's getting nice and light. The tyres may have given their best, although knowing Pipo, he will have looked after them in the early phase of the race.
Well, he doesn't put any weight through the tyres. He's absolutely one of the lightest, smallest drivers you find in the paddock. Now, if you want a scrap for class lead, you can look back to GTD, because Jan Heylen leading in the 16 Wright Motorsport Porsche, but down the inside or on the lower part of the track as they hit the banking, it's Frederick Schandorf, and he's got the nose of the McLaren in front. That's car number 70 from Inception Racing. He's in the right position to get into the Le Mans chicane in front, does it very well indeed. Jan Heylen's been around the block enough times to go, you know what, okay, good job through that corner onto the banking for the first time. But all along they've got a prototype trying to sweep past them as they go past another car, another GTD class car, but not running at their pace. But it's a great little lead battle. 26th and 27th overall is going one way, going the other. A Belgian racer against a Dane, and the Dane is now in front in the McLaren.
We've also reached the point where the leaders in the GT Daytona Pro class need to stop for some fuel and quite possibly a driver change as well, because Mathieu Jaminet has just completed 30 laps. Now, did he do the previous stint as well? No, that was Matt Campbell. So Jaminet should be fine for another 30 lapper. Patrick Pilet, actually these two cars haven't yet come in, but Kyle Kirkwood did. Patrick Assenheimer also in, so that was a 31 lap stint for Kirkwood in his Vassar Sullivan Lexus, and Assenheimer did 30 laps in the number 15 WeatherTech sponsored Proton USA Mercedes.
Back in the day, whenever that day was, of course, you saw what you saw, you missed what you didn't get to see. But of course, these days there are so many cameras, so many angles, and so many places in which people can put things up. Do you remember under cover of darkness we saw the Magnus Racing Aston Martin having a little off at the Le Mans chicane?
I do, yes.
Well, it was helped on its way. I've just seen a little video clip from that. So it lost time. Don't think it picked up any particular damage, but certainly wouldn't have been a huge amount of fun. But all the drivers in that team are known as Lord this weekend because of their addiction, Magnus Racing, with Monty Python events, and it's been a very good theme for them to pull up. And, so I think it was Lord Spencer at the time at the wheel, Lord Spencer Pompelli,
yes,
who brought the car back around. But anyhow, that was a sort of lucky miss. Might not have felt lucky at the time, but you did the miss, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I seem to remember it tangled with a prototype into the Le Mans chicane.
There were about a dozen cars piling in, you know,
difficult
dark
to tell.
Headlights, etc., but only one car left the track where it didn't need to, and unfortunately that was the Magnus Aston Martin.
Yeah, and from our viewpoint, we only got kind of one, although some replays to describe to you as well, but they were all from the same angle, and it's very difficult to get the perspective. Side by side then for the GT Daytona class, and that was a few moments ago when Jan Heylen lost the lead to Frederick Schandorf. But it was all set up a few corners before. Eventually decided into the Le Mans chicane, but it was a good run. In fact, off the infield and up onto the banking for the Inception Racing McLaren. Let's go back to the pit lane to hear this from Andrew Marriott.
Yeah, Mathieu Jaminet's just got his crash helmet off. Well, this is a huge battle, isn't it, with the other Porsche and the Ferrari?
Yeah, I would say it's a dogfight. I mean, it's been a good one,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a dogfight. I mean, it's been a crazy race until now. We see, I mean, the gaps are super close. You need to leave everything on track, and even more, we start to have a crazy battle. I had a good fight with the Ferrari until the incident with the P2.
Yeah, what happened there?
I mean, I couldn't really see. I just saw that the P2 car tried to pass around the outside and spun. And then, yeah, I didn't know if he had contact or whatever, but from my side, we were safe. And yeah, just a good five. Claim to second. I think we slightly closed the gap to the lead. So
yeah, well done.
Yeah, it's looking good, but it's still 4 hours to go. So in the end, we slowly coming to the end, meet up the pace and the strategy, and make sure we are there to fight in the last hour.
Will you be fighting at the end, or have you done your stuff?
Sorry?
Will you be in the car again?
Yeah, I'll be in the car again.
You bet. Thanks very much, Matthew Jaminet there.
Yeah, we're speaking to Andrew Marriott. He didn't tell us whether he'd been for the final stint, though, which was the crucial thing. Don't want to give too much away at Pfaff Motorsport, but it's a terrific lineup. Matt Campbell, who's retaken charge of that car then, the number 9. Jaminet was only in for one 30-lap stint, so it's an interesting approach. When will Felipe Nasser be utilised towards the end? Another 20 seconds, and we will have completed 20 hours of the 60th edition of the Rolex 24 live from Daytona. This is RS2 IMSA Radio, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. In from the race lead, Pipo Derani in the Wheel and Engineering sponsored Action Express 31 car then. Fuel going in, a game of patience, so that it's frustratingly slow at times, although it's still only a 33-second pit stop. Stationary that was, so mightily impressive from a well-versed, well-practiced team. And once again, the 31 car is on the move. I didn't actually grab the lead advantage for Pipo Derani, but it was probably 2 or 3 seconds. One man that might be able to answer that question is Richard Westbrook, who's just bailed out of the chasing car, number 5, now with Andrew.
Just taking his crash helmet off, just a bit of debrief here with his engineer. Just give him a little while to... Oh, Christian Fittipaldi, actually. Wow. What did you say?
Yeah. We took a big gamble with the tyres then, so yeah, now the sun's coming up, it's probably...
Were you double stinting?
Yeah, and obviously the others were on a single stint, so hanging on for dear life, but obviously it gave us track position, got us, it was a net gain, so he's got new tyres now, so we can just go.
Christian, how are you doing? Thanks very much. Richard needs to sit down, actually. You can tell he's been working very hard. Westy, brilliant job, mate.
And Christian Fittipaldi not wanting to mention too much either, but very good of Westy to give us a little bit of a secret line in terms of their strategy there. I suppose from a strategic point of view, it doesn't really matter now because it's been done, and the rest of the team's probably worked out what had happened from the slight drop-off in lap times, but that does explain why Pipo Derani was able to catch Richard Westbrook at, what, a second a lap, maybe slightly more than that at times. Hanging on for dear life was the quote from Westy, but as he says, they've now given the new driver, Loic Duval, brand new Michelin tyres, or new, slightly scrubbed perhaps tyres, and they will see the benefits of that in a few hours' time perhaps.
They will. Now, we talked when do you do certain changes you're going to have to make during the race. The Inception McLaren had been right in the lead of the GTD class. That's having a brake change at the moment in the pit lane. Now is their time. It's very late in the race with 4 hours to go. Maybe they just kept on waiting. Maybe that's what got them up into the hunt. Obviously, this longer pit stop for Frederick Schandorf will drop them down the order, so the order will change. It's Jan Halen leading GTD, the number 16 Wright Motorsport Porsche. His advantage is best part of a minute, 50 seconds over Nicholas Nielsen, the number 21 AF Corsa Ferrari. So the complexion keeps on changing. The other Ferrari all eyes are on is the 62 car. That's in the GTD Pro class because Alessandro Pierguidi is hunting down Matt Campbell, pushing him very hard indeed. That's the battle for second place in that class, but Dennis Olsen, we didn't get to speak to him because well, the team didn't want us to, but KCMG, their Porsche is leading the way. Slightly out of cycle, but the battle between Ferrari and Porsche is for second and third place in GTD Pro, and it's super tight. In fact, every time I've looked at that Pfaff Motorsport Porsche, the number 9 car, it's been in a battle with another car for class position ever since the start of the race.
Yes, it's one of those cars that, you know, those people who are very popular at parties and always got company. It seems like the number 9 car has just been like that during the race as well, whether that be a scrap for the lead or in this case fending off the third placed car in the form of Risi Competizione's Ferrari, the 62 of Alessandro Pierguidi. Ben Barnicoat fourth, a couple of minutes back actually, but still, no, it won't be on the lead lap because of the difference between the nose of that Lexus and at the rear of Alessandro Pierguidi. So there's about a lap between those two cars. Dennis Olsen on lap 5.90, leading for KCMG, as Bruce mentions. 0-1, well and truly off the strategy of everybody else. Remember, number of laps back because of earlier problems, but Renger van der Zande has come into the pit lane for a fuel stop, and we can hear from Mike Rockenfeller now with Andrew.
Well, Mike, so disappointing for you. I mean, you're really in at the middle of it with a big chance of this. Just recap for us what happened.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were trying, obviously, you know, to go through the night without any issues. We all try hard. Unfortunately, Jimmy had a contact with the GT. I didn't see it. And we had very bad damage, very severe on the rear right corner. So, yeah, we lost like 23 laps and basically game over. Yeah, it is what it is. It's endurance racing, and, you know, we all win together, we lose together, and we come back and try again.
How do you motivate yourself when you're driving after that?
You know,
professionalism.
Well, of course, it's fun. I mean, it's you know, it's an honor to drive these cars in Daytona. So I think there's not much you have to motivate me. I enjoy every lap out there.
Great attitude, mate. Thank you very much.
Rocky, who has had so many stories to tell through the years in many DTM campaigns, particularly at the Le Mans 24 Hours, of course. But also, you know, making him name for himself more and more at Daytona, and as he says, thoroughly enjoys the experience of a lap, something that he first tasted back in 2004, I reckon. So he's been coming to this race meeting at the start of the calendar year for so many years. Flying Lizards Motorsports, they managed a third place finish in the GT class back in 2004. So mightily experienced. Oh, neck and neck now coming onto pit road, and that's the 60 Acura from the DPI class versus an LMP2 car. So to watch the stop, Andrew Marriott. This is Simon Pagenaud, Andrew.
Yes, just not running this time, walking up to the car. A new set of tyres going on. I see they haven't scrubbed those. Fuel is going in. No driver change, I don't think, as I get closer. Just cleaning the screen, still more fuel. And Jack, of course, trying to win this race. 10 years since they won it before with amongst the drivers. Justin Wilson, so a very good stop from the team. You can't believe it, boys. And down here, where they accelerate away, there's about a centimetre thick of raw Michelin rubber where they accelerate out every time. We did say it yesterday, but I think I'd like to repeat this, that in the WEC, if you spin the tyres as you leave the pit lane, you get a penalty. But here in America, in IMSA, you get a round of applause.
It's actively encouraged, isn't it? If you don't make a right old racket and leave a plume of smoke, then you don't win many fans that way. And yeah, that's the difference in culture, you perhaps might say. Coming racing in the States, very much set up for the fans' perspective. But so many big teams, of course, too, that desperately want to take the race win. But they're all racing fans beneath it all, and love the sights, the sounds, the smells of full-out motor racing.
But it's also what all fans like, and it's so many times greater at the end of an endurance race, is the release of pressure and the applause at the end. And don't forget, if Meyershank Racing, their car number 60, which is running in the lead at the moment, can go on to win this event, what, not even a 12 months, what effect about an 8-month period it will be for Michael Shank and the gang, winning the Indy 500 last year to this. And those images are fresh in my mind of the celebrations at the Brickyard last May. Absolutely phenomenal result for the team, and if they can double up and take victory here, 4 hours to go, or very nearly, but they're at the front of the race. But let's see how they go. We have got different race tactics, but always as you get towards the end, it becomes much more similar. And those like the number 5 crew from JDC Miller Motorsport, we just had Richard Westbrook reveal that he did 2 stints on a set of tyres. That's brought them some advantage, and now the number 5 car is out on the track on fresh rubber. Lloyd Duval, well, he's the fastest driver out there at the moment. He's lying third. He's closing in on Pipo Derani, and you know, more heat in the track, fresher rubber that can actually grip. Hurrah! That would be a real favour for JDC Motorsports. And will the others have to take the pain, or will they have enough tyres to make it to the end? Constantly sticking fresh rubber. We know the answer is no to that. It's when they do a double stint, really.
Yeah, I just wonder whether the crew at Wayne Taylor Racing, the number 10 car, did the same. Let me compare the lap times on average for Richard Westbrook, who did a 21-lap stint and managed the average of 136.5. Rossi's second stint dropped to a 136.2. So it wasn't very far away from Westbrook. Yes, it was 0.3 of a second faster across a 22-lap stint, but compared to the previous Rossi stint, he did 2 back-to-back. He lost 0.3 of a second on average. Now, does that suggest it was the same set of tyres for each of those stints? Maybe something for Andrew to chase up. Did the number 10 car running in 4th also double stint its tyres? Without a doubt, it will have been a new set of Michelins for Philippe Albuquerque, who's now taken charge of the number 10 car, running in 4th position. So we have Pipo Derani installed for a second stint to make that a double. Loic Duval took over from Richard Westbrook, who quite frankly needed to sit down after his second of a double. So Duval takes over there. Simon Pagenaud had only done 1 22-lap stint, so he's staying inside the number 60 car for Mayashak with Kerr Agajanian, and the number 10 car, as mentioned, now in the hands of Portuguese driver Philippe Albuquerque.
Now, we just had Andrew Marriott describing the rubber being burnt in the pit lane, and Jeremy Shaw, who'll be back in the commentary box in just over an hour. Global Broadcast Centre, he said, he just another way, coming via, not by Twitter, but via WhatsApp. We've got to watch all the channels. You talked about spinning the tyres. This is just to clarify things. Coming out of the pit stop, you can't spin the tyres, we pointed this out earlier, if the car is on the air jack, that's an instant penalty, but if spinning them on the ground is fine. In fact, that's the only way to warm them up at the moment. No sissy tyre warmers here, of course, he says, pointing in all sorts of directions. But so thank you for that clarification, Jeremy. Once you're back on the deck, you can spin them all you like. In the air, though, that's a problem.
Yeah, and it was the Dragon Speed car I noticed many hours ago now had a problem with that. It was up on the jacks, and I wonder whether the throttle had stuck open, because it was almost in a point where it wasn't even a driver in the cockpit and the wheels were spinning.
That was explained to us by Pascal Ward, the driver who got out at that time, and he said there was a problem with the throttle sticking open, but they'd had a problem with the engine restarting before, so he thought he had to leave the engine on, and he's now been disabused of that as soon as he got out of the car. Don't leave it on, because you could spin the wheels. So anyhow, it's all part of learning, and it just goes to prove, quite frankly, it's no surprise to anyone, but it's worth pointing out, is the fact these cars change through the course of the race, and you often have a problem you have to work your way around. Hopefully not for many hours, but for many a team, if it's a problem that's too big to actually fix, you've got to drive around it. You've got to be aware of that, and we've got, which is the car that is the Gradient Racing Acura running in GTD. They don't have an air jack on their car that works anymore, so they have slow pit stops. It's all problems you've got to nurse around. Andrew, have you got any news of problems down in the pits?
Well, you asked me to check out on Wayne Taylor Racing, so I come to the horse's mouth. Wayne, Westy just got out of the car. He double stinted the tyres. Are you doing the same thing?
No, we put on a set of scrub tyres for Philippe, and then we're going to decide at the end of this stint whether we'll double. It's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's pretty strange how that pit stop ended up, because we were actually ahead of a lot of cars purely on speed. But somehow we lost to the pit stop, and we had the best stop ever. So not sure what other people are doing right now.
Right, haven't you been in this situation 4 or 5 hours before the end of the race so many times, Wayne, sort of crossing everything, knowing you're in with a shout? It's the same.
Yeah, I think we do. I think we've got a chance in this. I wouldn't have said that to you last night, but I think we...
Yeah, you were 2 laps down at one stage.
Yeah, we were 2 laps down, and we weren't making any gains on anybody. They were actually pulling away, even with 2 laps down. And now we seem to be able to be at least at the same pace, and we just have to keep executing and putting the right drivers in the car.
And you certainly got 4 great peddlers. 4 great peddlers there. Albuquerque always does a great job, and your son is always quick, isn't he?
Yeah, Rick is pretty special here. Philippe is, Alex and Will just come on board with us. I mean, just perfect.
Perfect. Let's hope it's a perfect day when the checkered flag drops. Who knows?
Thanks, me too.
Thanks, Wayne, and congratulations on being Grand Marshal. I said to you, I think I said to you yesterday, what's the main thing you get? Free lunches.
Yes, exactly. Free lunch, free breakfast.
They often say there's no such thing as that, but obviously a Grand Marshal does bring that reward. Corvette have had a long, long night with their two new-ish Corvette C, what are we, 8Rs now, the mid-engine machines, but sort of backwards engineers to become GT3 cars to be able to be eligible to run in GT Daytona Pro. But because of an awful lot of work that needed to be done to both the 3 and the 4 overnight, some of the mechanics are choosing this moment to get a bit of shut-eye, just 3 3/4 hours away from the checkered flag. Up onto Speedway turn 3 will go Pipo Dirani, leading by 5.5 seconds over Loic Duval. It's the two Cadillacs out front, 31 from 5, then Simon Pagenaud in the 60 Acura from Meyershank Racing, ahead of Philippe Albuquerque, driving for the man we just heard from, Tonica Minolta and Wayne Taylor Racing. Oh, around the outside will go the Wins-backed LMP2 car there. That just about gets its way through. Was that an LMP3 car?
The Wins one, no, it's LMP2, it's car 52, PR1 Mattis.
I'm confused, you see, because Philippe Fraga is driving an LMP3 car, who's a regular with that team.
Correct.
But P2, yes, which is the Riley Motorsports car, is an LMP2 car. So second of the 3